let's talk about something that many people don't mention when they talk about selling everything to travel the world. We all love the idea of full-time travel, right? But you may secretly be wondering, am I actually going to feel stable doing this? Or am I just going to wind up feeling untethered and lost? It's a valid fear. Most people think the challenge is the logistics, the flights, the visas, the packing. But the real hurdle isn't, can I physically do this? It's, will I feel grounded when my home changes every 30 days or every week or whatever amount of time it is for you? So today, I want to pull back the curtain on why full-time travel can actually start to feel maybe like a weird, exhausting version of retirement if you aren't careful, and how to build a life that feels like a life, not just one long, blurry vacation. Welcome to How to Travel Full-Time, the podcast that helps you turn your dream of full-time travel into a realistic and sustainable lifestyle. I'm your host, certified professional coach, TEDx speaker, and New York Times featured travel lifestyle strategist, Heather Markel. I'm excited to get you motivated and going with tips, real life stories, and strategies from someone who's been living the lifestyle since 2018. Let's jump in. If you're working in corporate, or you ever have, or for some kind of company, then you know we get conditioned for that 2-week sprint. And maybe it's just a 1-week sprint, depending how many vacation days you have. So you work yourself to the bone for at least 50 weeks a year. And then you have, if you're lucky, 14 days to see everything. You're in vacation mode, right? When you do it, so you're eating out every night, you're hitting every museum, and you're constantly on. But when you travel full time, the vacation ends and life begins. And if you try to live that life at a vacation pace indefinitely, you are definitely going to burn out within 3 months, guaranteed. Suddenly, you aren't working that 9 to 5, and you realize, oh, I have to plan my entire day, every day, for as long as I do this. Without a boss or an office, travel can start to feel like early retirement. And if you haven't prepared for that much open space in your life, it's actually kind of scary and possibly boring. You realize that stability isn't about having a mortgage. It's about having a reason to get out of bed. If you're staring at a blank calendar and feeling more anxious than excited, that's exactly what I help people navigate in coaching. We look at how to build a full-time travel setup that actually works for you. When it comes to stability, we are raised to think that it equals stuff and staying in place. So stability is supposed to be having a house, a 401k, maybe a car, lots of stuff from Amazon.com. So when you start traveling full time, you feel like you've thrown stability out the window. But let's be honest, how stable did you feel in your old life? Were you grounded or were you just anchored? There's a big difference. Most of us were just busy and we mistook that for being stable, because true stability isn't about where you are, it's about your internal rhythm, and it's about steadiness, not sameness. Now, I used to be that every 3 days traveler. I mentioned that in my last episode, how I started out traveling full time by literally moving locations every 3 days. I was so focused on seeing everything that I was actually seeing nothing. I was essentially checking boxes and trying to see every possible nook and cranny of whatever country I was in. But I ended up in La Fortuna, Costa Rica, and when I went, for some reason, I booked an entire week, which at the time was for me like slow travel. I worried I'd be bored. A week in one place at that time seemed like forever. And I remember waking up and realizing I had absolutely no plans. No tours booked, no must-see waterfalls on the schedule. And so one day I wandered into this adorable coffee shop called La Vaca Purpura, the purple cow, which if you don't know, I love cows. So the fact that the cow was in the title was an instant Heather must go there moment. And I met the owner. Her name was Karen. Turned out she was an entrepreneur like me. She had traveled the world and came back to Costa Rica and took all her learning about coffee from around the world and created this amazing shop. Now, because I wasn't rushing off to the next top-rated attraction, I got to actually talk to Karen and learn all these wonderful things about her. And we became fast friends. And she started telling me about these hidden gems that aren't in any guidebook, places that only the locals know. And so I went to her shop every day, the entire time that I was in La Fortuna. And one night, she and her husband invited me to dinner. And they drove me outside the tourist center to, more authentic corners of this wonderful area that I would never have found. And once I went to a restaurant I'd never heard of and, had food that was much less expensive and delicious. And that week just changed a lot for me. It was the first time I realized that full-time travel isn't about the sights. It's about the connections. And it was a reminder that part of the reason I got into full-time travel was to reconnect to the joy that I had living with French host families as a teenager, where I had nothing but time to discover, develop those relationships, and exist. So this experience in Costa Rica taught me that stability really comes from that depth, not the miles traveled, and not the every site visited. In fact, I have now gone to several places where there are some major sites I never even went to, and I'm okay with that. Because when you're on a 2-week vacation, you feel guilty if you aren't doing something every second. But when travel is your life, you have that luxury of time. You have the permission to have a nothing day. And ironically, those nothing days, those days where you just sit in a cafe long enough to meet the owner or do your laundry, those are the days where you actually start to feel grounded. You stop being a visitor and you start having favorite places. So stability in this lifestyle is about creating a rhythm of discovery rather than a schedule of sightseeing. It's more about trading that top 10 list for a conversation with a local. You trade the hotel lobby for a neighborhood where people know your name by Thursday. You realize that the most authentic part of a country usually happens exactly where the tour bus does not stop. If you're struggling to let go of that vacation guilt and you're worried that slowing down means you're wasting your time, that's another thing we can work through in coaching. We can look at how to shift your mindset from seeing the world to actually living in it. Now, stability does not mean that you're not going to have bad days. You'll still have days where the Wi-Fi dies during a meeting, or you might feel lonely, or you could realize you've forgotten how to speak the local language and the word for pharmacy. But stability is knowing how to come back to yourself when things go sideways. In a traditional life, we hide behind our stuff. In the full-time travel life, you have to find that grounding inside yourself. At the end of the day, most of us aren't looking for constant adrenaline. We're looking for peace. We want a life that feels manageable and spacious. Full-time travel can give you that, but only if you stop treating it like a getaway. You have to design it like a life. You have to learn how to be retired from the rat race without losing your sense of self. And if you want to move past the fantasy version of travel and start building a real, sustainable, grounded life on the road, let's talk. Coaching isn't about the where, it's about the how. You can find the link to book a session in the show notes. Full-time travel, no matter how long or short you do it for, is such a rewarding experience. And it's worth getting familiar with the ups and the downs that you might experience so that you have the best chance of navigating through the rough spots and loving your experience. Have a great week, and I'll talk to you on the next episode. Thanks for listening. If you're ready to start living the full-time travel lifestyle, or you're already doing it and you want to make it last longer, I'd like to invite you to the Full-Time Travel Academy. It's where I offer training and coaching that helps you get clear on how to start, how to afford, and how to sustain a full-time travel lifestyle. Learn more at www.fulltimetravelacademy.com. Have a beautiful week.